Hey guys, so in this episode of Make It with Calvin, I'm going to actually attempt to finish a model train layout project here on camera. I'm going to be taking two of these little trays, if you will, or layout bases or whatever, and actually try and turn them into a functional dual gauge model railway for showing off my models and, well, just having to operate. So let's dive into it. So the backstory on these bases is I made them up at least like a year ago when I was over at Ashley's house, and they're very simple. They're just made with some scrap multi-ply plywood and then just some thin wood that went on the top, and you can see some old layout designs that I had on there that clearly didn't become, but that's not a bad thing. So the point behind this layout is I'm trying to take and make what's called a dual gauge railway. As you guys know by now, I do 18-inch, 30-inch narrow gauge. This right here, the ON30 stuff. And I also do a little bit of 18-inch narrow gauge, which is this, ON18. Now, the idea is I want to have a small portable layout that I can take to shows, play around with on my own, over where I'm renting at or whatever, and just have something that I can use as a photo backdrop for the various items that I'm working on. So I ended up taking a design that I found on a Facebook micro railway layout page. Wow, that was butchered. And I made up this. Now I'm going to do some close-ups on the different areas so you guys can see it better. But in short, we have a wharf over here. We have what's called a sector plate, which is like a modified turntable. And then up here, we just have like a simple little switchback, and that's that. Now, as for the actual layout design, when I say dual gauge, what I mean is you have two railway gauges or track widths in the same track. So for certain areas of this, it will be dual gauge. So there will be 18-inch and 30-inch in the same area, and I'll explain that more in a minute. Okay guys, so sorry if this is a little washed out, but here is the basic idea. Being that there are two separate pieces, I drew it up as such. Okay, there we go. Now you can see it. So here is what's called a car float or a rail ferry interchange point. So this is where the rail cars come in and out of. This will be dual gauge. This up here is a little wharf front building, and this will be strictly for the 30-inch narrow gauge. This will have the 30 and the 18. And down here is just a separate little track, so if we had, say, like a barge or something come in, we can load and unload from that as well. That too is 18-inch narrow gauge. Now jumping to the back side where we have the switchback. This I'm debating if it will or will not be dual gauge, but let's move to the other part. The other half of this is pretty simple. This is just the little dual gauge line that runs along the side. Here is the dual gauge line that runs to the car float and then to the 30-inch line. And then this right here is the to be determined track. Now, this right here that controls everything is what's called a sector plate. It's pretty much just a modified version of a turntable where you have a pivot point and then you can just move it according to where you need it. Now, I'm not sure if I have enough depth on here. I don't really think I do currently to run a servo motor to accurately position everything and throw the track switches, but I have a solution to that. Like any good cooking show, I prepared this one later. This is the same exact base with 1 inch of pink insulation foam glued on top. This stuff is relatively dense and it makes a good base point. And because I want a little bit of vertical separation between the top of this and the bottom for the wharf scene, this is definitely going to help. So now I should have enough vertical room to hopefully be able to install the servo motor, and that can hopefully operate things with some degree of accuracy. The point is I want to make this so that it forces me to do some electronic stuff, which I haven't done in a long time, so why not? So let me go ahead and transfer the design that I've got on there to the other piece of foam, cut out the areas for the wharf scene, and then we'll go from there. Oh, and a pro tip, you'll notice that I made a bunch of little pencil prick marks and then went over that with a marker so I'd have a rough idea of where my track is going. Mind you, this is all subject to change, but at least it gives me a general idea of how things are going to be laid out. So let's jump down to the work table and crank that out real quick.